Go. All
Yay.
right. Yay. Technology is so fun. Hi. For anybody joining us, I am Leo Horton. I am a certified intuitive eating counselor and the creator of this group that you're watching this video in, the Anti-Diet Health Club. And today I'm really excited to have a conversation with Molly. Molly and I have worked together. I think it ended up being like 8
8 months. Yeah.
months because we took a couple month-long breaks for personal travel reasons. But yeah, you are somebody that came to me because you were struggling with your relationship with food and navigating some medical things. And I absolutely love the transformation you've had. So I'm really excited to get into it and have people learn your story. But before we dive in, just tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah. So I'm 43. I am a mom to an almost 4-year-old. Had her obviously pretty late in life. A lot of that due to Crohn's disease. Spent a number of years getting diagnosed and then getting well, where they were like, please, God, don't try to have a kid right now. Found myself in a good space. I found keto and was doing all this stuff, and I lost a ton of weight really fast and was in a good place to have a baby. But I also knew that something like that wouldn't be sustainable. It hasn't worked since I had my kid, and the Crohn's has been a problem since I had her too. And being an older mom who's sick anyway, there was always sort of some issues. I own a bookkeeping business that I run virtually from home, so that I'm home with my kiddo, which is a super awesome experience. My mom also lives with us. My husband is a truck driver. We're in kind of a fun situation. There's always some sort of chaos happening in our house, which I cannot guarantee there will not be chaos while we're on this call, but hey, that is just life. Um, but yeah, so I have a lot of things to do. I wear a lot of hats. I have responsibilities to my clients. I have a team. I have responsibilities to them, to my kid, to my family, taking care of a parent who is, yeah, I mean, she's aging, which nobody really likes, but, there's things that come along with that. And so finding time for myself, and I know a lot of women feel this way, moms feel this way in general too. It's like there's just always somebody to take care of. I don't always put myself first. And that was, part of my struggles too, is trying to take care of everybody else, figure out what was good for me, and then just finally, I can't do this alone anymore. So, yeah, I guess that's a little bit about, who I am and sort of my journey to Leah. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you and I had met like just networking and just
Yeah.
chatting, like completely kind of unrelated, but you just kind of asked about what I did. And I knew you're like, okay, like I'm interested. I'm picking up what
Mhm.
you're laying down. But what was like the thing that really had you say
Right
yes
now, no,
to
go tell grandma.
working together?
Sorry, see, here we go, toddler. Go tell grandma.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of it too, because we did connect through networking, and so then we connected on LinkedIn. I'm not super active on Facebook. I have a business page. I have a couple of friends. Like I do a lot of business stuff on Facebook, like in bookkeeping groups and things like that, some local stuff. But so where I usually connect is on LinkedIn. And so, I would see your content on LinkedIn, and I would read about, the things you're doing. And so many of the words that you use, so much of what you talked about with struggling and with, in disordered eating and what that meant for you. And I think that was the biggest thing. I would read your posts and I would enjoy listening to what you were, but there was a day where I was just feeling so overwhelmed with everything and like, God, what am I going to find to work? I had, been to the doctor, and like, I just don't know what to do. And it's hard. I'm a big person. I've always been a big person, but I've been a healthy big person. And I can be very active and sort of that, but my body is one that doesn't really want to go below about 200 pounds. And I've accepted that. I'm actually really, happy when I'm in that space, which is definitely not right now. I mean, I'm not in that weight, but I'm very happy with my body like right now. So it's a different mindset that'll come a little later here. But there was one in particular where you were talking about going out to eat and how you planned when you were going out to eat, how you were going to enjoy the experience while honoring your body, and talked about what that looked like in the realm of disordered eating for you, and what disordered eating looked like for you before, and how you transformed that to find a way to honor your body now. And I was literally crying when I was reading that post because I wanted that. And so it was very much like, I wanted what you had. I wanted that comfort. I wanted to be able to sort of share that vulnerability too, of like, hey, this is where I was and this is where I am, and I'm also a recovering addict. And so there's that aspect of, seeing what somebody wants, or seeing what somebody has, wanting that for yourself, and then working towards that, and then being able to come out the other side and share your experience, strength, and hope with other people. And so that was really important. And so that was when it was like, hey, Leah, it's been a bit. We should probably have a one-on-one and just like catch up. And also like, we need to talk about working together because I need this. And when we had that one-on-one, it was very emotional, and I tried a lot, and I walked away from that meeting though knowing that things were gonna get better and that I could have that for myself too. And today I do. So
Yeah,
yeah.
thank you so much for sharing that. And it's a hard thing to talk about. I feel like a lot of the times our body image and our food struggles and all of that, it is really a hidden shame. It's something that we don't share with people, or on the flip side, we share it in like a really toxic sort of way. Like,
Yes.
with diet culture, we're like bonding with our girlfriends about
Right.
like what diet we're trying this week or whatever.
Right.
It's
Or what
not.
lifestyle?
Yes, what lifestyle, or
Not a diet, it's a lifestyle.
exactly. um and so we really don't talk about it at all. And so I do think that hearing that other, like, I thought my disordered eating was like normal, right? Because we like live in a world where it's all normalized. I didn't even know the term disordered eating. I thought I was just dieting, like that was okay, like I'm trying to get
Yeah.
healthy, right? This is like what I had been taught. And so even just, I think I like just saw the word disordered eating in passing somewhere and like Googled it and was like, oh my goodness, this is like everything that I'm doing. This is a
Yeah.
problem. Like, that's not a healthy relationship with food. And so like I think it's really important for people to like start learning that and understanding what actually is a healthy relationship with food, because
Absolutely.
it's so morphed in our society that we don't think it's possible for us because, we've been in diet culture for decades, right? And it's a really hard thing to break out of.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and as a large human too, it's always like, well, you just need to eat less.
mhm.
Or, maybe you should get bariatric surgery. Don't even get Leah or I started on that because that is a whole different conversation. Um, but it's like never sort of the understanding that like maybe my body is just different and it's not responding to any of these things because it's not like somebody else's. And also like, why can't my body be healthy at a different way? I mean, I had a doctor, thank God I had an amazing doctor when I was a teenager, and I went to her. I was 275 pounds my junior year in high school. Like I was a big kid. I always was. And I remember talking to her and like going on and on about stuff. And she's like, you're just not built the same. And what an amazing experience too. And I mean, she told me once, like, if you ever get below 175 pounds, which is like high BMI for your height, she's like, I'll kick your butt because that's not healthy for you. That is not where your body needs to be. So like, let's just focus on your body and like what it needs. And I mean, I was a kid. I didn't have, really the capacity to sort of walk into it in that situation. But to have that message be sent so early to me helped me in my foundation as I continue to try to find different ways to be healthy growing up. So exceptional. But yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, body diversity exists, and a large part of our
Uh,
body makeup is our genetics that we can't control. And people like to just ignore that fact. It's like, I'm sorry, large people have always existed. A lot of people like to blame the obesity epidemic on like the inception of like processed foods and things, and that we're now just getting lazy and eating junk. But that's not true. There's always been people in different size bodies, and that's okay. And you can absolutely be healthy in a large body. I actually saw a couple weeks ago, the AMA released a statement that they would be de-emphasizing BMI
Thank
going
God.
forward, which is
Thank
a good
God.
step. There's still some things that are kind of
Yes.
problematic with it, but that's a good sign that our medical system is kind of moving towards, trying to
Towards
take a look.
actual medical science too. And the fact that, like, I'm sorry, how many times have we debunked this crap?
Right. Yeah, there's literally hundreds of studies at this point that support that health is not tied to weight and all of that. So, yeah, I know how frustrating it can be. And, I don't have the lived experience of living in a large body, but I know that our world is stacked against you, and that is really unfair. And it doesn't have to mean anything about you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. Well, I'm curious to hear what were kind of your biggest like aha moments or lessons or takeaways from our time together? Like, what were the things that really had big shifts for you?
Yeah, some of them were, really the understanding that my body didn't understand what full meant. And as we talked through looking at hunger and fullness cues and how, hey, they might not be the same. I know if I'm in the middle of a day and I start yawning, I'm not tired, I'm hungry. And that's usually the point of the day where it's like, I might have had a good breakfast, but maybe I rushed through lunch because I had to go from meeting to meeting, or run and do something for kiddo or something like that. And literally my body is like, all right, you need to stop now and give me some nutrition. And if I eat, I'm good. And then I keep moving. And so recognizing those different things that it means for me. But fullness was a different thing. I always remember hearing, even you're hungry, stop when you're full. And I always thought that's what I did. And at some point through the process of being a big kid and having people tell me, well, just don't eat as much. And then, starting to hide and, binge and things like that because it was shameful. And, I wasn't supposed to eat, or like, oh, you don't need a second plate of food at a holiday. Well, everybody else is getting a second plate. Or do you really need a dessert? Well, everybody else is eating dessert. Like, when don't I get to? And, and so at some point I shifted. Okay, I'm not going to read it right now though. Okay. At some point, no, I see it. Yep. Go show grandma. Yep. There is a cat. Yep. Go talk to grandma. Sorry. Um, so that is my life. That is my life. That is every business call. That is every call I get. And there was some point where something shifted in my brain where my fullness trigger started saying, no, you're hungry. And so I had to sift through. So learning when to eat, like learning what the hunger cues were, that was easy. That was just paying a little bit of attention, really paying attention to fullness cues, really paying attention to, okay, we've got a scale of what it feels like when I'm full, and stopping, being slow while I was eating, taking some time, working to not be stressed. That's something we really had to work through too, because like I eat when I'm stressed, like I do all this stuff. So, not eating when I'm stressed, things like that, really starting to pay attention. Is primarily supper was my big one, because the rest of the day is pretty easy for me. But supper, sitting down with the family, finally being calm, there's more food available because there's enough for everybody and there's enough for seconds. And so really working on, what does full mean? What does full feel like? Doing some experimentation with getting too full, and things like that. And so it was a lot of really stopping and paying attention to my body. And there's so much of that through the process of really listening to your body through intuitive eating. And so as we started to build on those skills and on really listening to those things, it started to get a lot easier to figure out what full meant. And so that was a really big one for me, is really recognizing that, like, okay, my brain has been screwing with me because society screwed with my brain and all this stuff. And so unlearning and relearning. And then that started to become easier. And so now I don't do that. And, we've had family around and I've watched other people eat too much and be like, oh my God, I'm so full, I'm so fat. And I'm like, I don't do that, because I can enjoy the experience, I can enjoy the process, and then I could save some for later so I can enjoy it again. I don't feel like I have to continue going because everybody else is. I don't have to feel like I have to continue going because like, oh my God, it tastes so good. Yeah, but it's going to taste really good tomorrow too. Or like maybe even in a few hours because I might be hungry again before the end of the night, and getting over some of those things too, where it's like, oh, well, I can't eat right before bed. Well, if I'm hungry, God damn it, I'm a grown up. If I want to eat before bed, I can. I just try to find out what it is my body wants before bed. And that's experimentation too, of like, okay, this sounds really good, but in the morning that didn't feel very good. And so remembering, the more you pay attention, and for me, I had to do it without any journaling, and that was something that we had to work through too, because I have a lot of emotional triggers with tracking food. That is a big part of my disordered eating, and weighing and counting and all of that stuff. And if I continued to do that, I wouldn't have been able to learn to listen to what my body is telling me about what I need, not how many chips the bag says is a serving, but how many chips my body wants.
Mhm.
And so that was really great, learning all of that stuff. So that's what's so kind of some of my biggest things, and recognizing too that extends beyond food. I had an injury that I was kind of nursing, and when I re-injured it, when I looked back, I could see where I was not using what I had learned about intuitive eating and listening to my body, to listen to my body about movement as well. And so it's totally my own damn fault that I re-injured myself, because I was not listening to my body, but recognizing that there are so many pieces of that, and like we were just talking about, I've been struggling with trying to figure out, I've had something going on with me health wise, and I didn't know what it was, but because I was truly listening to my body, it's like something is wrong. Something is very wrong. I am not okay. And being able to go into my care providers, who I have fantastic care providers, and interview your people, by the way, like interview your doctors, interview your people, make sure you have people who, you go in and see your doctor and say something's wrong. And they're like, oh, you're a woman, you have hormones, just deal with it. No. Or, oh, you're a fat person, lose some weight. No, I did not eat myself into this. Whatever is going on has nothing to do with my weight. But to be able to walk in and say, something is really wrong with me, and have them say, okay, let's figure that out, because I can identify my body does not feel how it did before. This is what I'm seeing. And being able to really listen to all those little things, grab all those little pieces and find ways to do them. So just like, seriously, we talked about it at one point, is like being in partnership with my body. But for me too, it's also rebuilding trust with my body. My body doesn't trust me. It doesn't trust that I'm not going to starve it. It doesn't trust that I'm not going to decide that an entire class of food no longer gets to come into my body because somebody said it wasn't okay. Like, my body is relearning to trust that I'm going to feed it what it wants, feed it what it needs, and give it the movement it wants and all those things. And so it's like rebuilding that partnership with my body. And that's been one of the biggest takeaways, but all those little pieces had to come into place first to get there. So that was a lot.
Yeah. So
You know,
lots of
you
like,
can't ask me open-ended questions because I won't shut up.
no, it's perfect though. But like, so what I'm hearing is like, it's, trial and error, like being open to experimenting and
Yep,
seeing what happens. And I think
absolutely.
the big caveat with that is like also not being judgmental around it, of just like, we're just playing around, seeing what works and what doesn't work, and
Yes.
taking that information forward with how we want to like make decisions or act or do things in the future.
That is
Uh,
huge.
because it's like, I think the old diet brain is like, oh, I overate. Now I'm going to like pile on a bunch of guilt and shame because I overate and felt miserable and I really should have stopped. Right. Versus getting curious and yeah, just experimenting and playing around with the mission being like, I just want to learn my body better at the end of the day. And yeah, I think rebuilding that trust is really,
Yes.
really huge.
Well, and that is huge. And thank you for saying that, because that is a huge part of it, is the non-judgment. A huge part of it is just, and I came to too, I was going through positive intelligence training when I came through this too. So there were already some things that we had to build. I love that too, because you really you're like, okay, normally we would talk about this a little later, but let's bring this in because this is where you're at right now. And meeting where I was in that moment. But that is so much of it is a blameless discernment, non-judgment, just like, let's just recognize what's happening right now in this moment, and I did this with my clients. He was like, this is not a shame space. Like, this is not a shame space. This is not a space where we can do that. Yes, that's fine. Go ahead. And also like too, like I have a small human here who needs to learn, not even learn. She needs to not unlearn intuitive eating because we know it when we're born. You watch a toddler, a baby, something like that, who's not like hemmed in by like, oh, it's breakfast time and then snack time and then lunchtime, like who can just eat when they're hungry, stop when they're full, eat what sounds good. They know we're born with this. We know this when we start. And I am desperately trying to make sure that she does not unlearn it because it's going to be so much easier for her to just go through life, just doing what her body knows it's supposed to do than having to like learn something totally different and then unlearn it and then relearn it again. There's no reason anybody should be having to learn how to intuitive eat. Like we learned that. We didn't even learn that. Like we were born installed with that programming, like, so.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think we all know that person that's like, they don't worry about food and they just like eat when they're hungry and stop when they're full. And it's like not a big deal. And I would like look at them and be like, but how are you doing that? And it's like, it's usually because, their upbringing was different. Maybe they weren't as susceptible to diet culture. They had different familial influences, all of these different kinds of things that do play a role. And I do think it's also different a little bit for men and women. We have, kind of different standards that we're held to. And all of that does impact our relationship with food. And you're absolutely right that it's all about just unlearning all of the things that diet culture has taught us to do. It's like you're not hungry, just drink some water. Or, even I think about like elementary school, you weren't allowed to eat in between, you had set snack times and set lunch times, and you couldn't eat outside those windows. And that even like, while it's well-meaning and I get it, it would be pure chaos if you let all the kids eat whatever they wanted, but that starts to break down your self-trust of like, oh, I'm not allowed to eat right now, so I guess I'll just be hungry. And it starts to normalize that, and that's where all of our problems start, right? And when you're an adult, you get to make up your own rules. You can eat whenever you want.
Well, unless you work in an environment that's the same way too. And there's, those are whole other conversations about, work culture, education culture, all of that kind of stuff, but yeah, it's in so many ways, just our bodies know, but we are trained to stop listening to them. And that's the biggest thing is now I listen to my body.
Yeah. I would love to know like a little bit more, have you speak on like navigating an autoimmune condition and intuitive eating and what that looked like for you. Because I know that that's very often seen as like a roadblock for people of like, oh, if I have to eat a certain way out of medical necessity, how does that fit in with this process? So what was that like for you?
Yeah, well, and for me, there's definitely things that I was doing that maybe were not quite what I should have been, doing, where it's not like, oh yeah, no, this is good for, Crohn's and whatever. But again, even with autoimmune, even with any health issue, what works for one person doesn't always work for others. There's still not a one size fits all solution to that. No, honey, I am literally on live on Facebook right now. No, because you cannot consent to be on social media yet. So, so sorry, my brain starts to get lost when the toddler jumps in. But no, so again, it's not a one size fits all solution. And so, I tried a bunch of different things to kind of help manage my Crohn's disease and be on medication, because medication is definitely a piece of what I have to have. I feel very fortunate, like I have not had the situation with Crohn's that a lot of people do, but for me, most of mine isn't intestinal, most of mine is all of these other symptoms, which also brings in the need for a lot of diet focus, because autoimmune brings on allergy issues and stuff like that. And so a lot of the issues that I have with the rest of my body, can be seen as allergy responses and things like that. And so it's figuring out what those foods are that are good and bad, for how they make me feel. And so it's a part of that process too, is like, okay, well, maybe the specific carbohydrate diet can help, but if I'm doing that and I'm still not feeling okay, then there's probably something missing. And so I can intuitively know that that's not enough. And, and so that's been a piece of it too, where it's like the whole process of it just gets you listening to your body, just gets you listening to what your body needs, to recognize when something doesn't feel right. I'd really gotten myself into the whole the fasting, like the intermittent fasting kind of stuff too. And one of the earliest things that you did was like, you need to eat breakfast. And I was like, yeah, no, but I don't feel good if I eat breakfast. And it's not like, can you try it for a week? Just try for a week. Let's see. And it was like, oh wow, actually this makes a huge difference in how everything runs for me for the rest of the day. And so I had gotten myself out of that and thought I was in this place where it's like, oh no, this is actually how things run best. And it's like, well, if certain foods at lunchtime then are making things horrible for you digestively, can we start with something easier in the morning? And maybe and then I don't have those issues. And so it's trying different things too. And sometimes it's just having somebody help you get out of your own way. I think I'm a pretty smart person and I've done a lot of research and I know a lot of things, but that also is detrimental. And that also was a big piece we had to work out of. Sorry, and I have to have baby kitties lick my face now. I have to, it can be very detrimental. This is my world. And so a lot of that too is talking yourself out of what you know.
Mhm. Absolutely. We often don't need more knowledge. We have all the
I need
knowledge that
less.
we need.
Yeah, I need less a
Um,
lot of times.
yeah, I think, I have fibromyalgia, and so there are certain like food associations that will kind of trigger a flare up. And for me, one of the biggest things is just like, I know you mentioned like, oh, this is good and this is bad. And it's really like for your body.
Yes,
It's not coming from the place of like diet culture,
yes,
good and bad. It's coming
yeah,
from like what's supportive of my body and what's not. And making those choices from an empowered place, not because we feel like we're not allowed to have it or it's
right.
for us. It's
Exactly.
like, no, I'm actually like choosing not to eat this food because it really doesn't make me feel good and I want
Yeah.
to feel good. And that's a very different kind of energy. I did all of the like elimination diets and tried all the things and tried doing paleo and all whatever. And the mindset, like I'm still eating mostly paleo-ish, like
Yeah.
that's because that's what my body
Right.
likes.
Yeah.
But the mindset around it is so different because it's just like, yeah, I know this will make my body feel good versus like, I'm not allowed to have the sugar or the pasta
Right.
or the whatever.
Yeah.
And it does make a really big difference on where those decisions are coming from.
Yeah. And knowing what aspects of those things don't feel good, and it's like, yeah, to like, oh, bread. Well, I mean, I can have gluten. And so that gets hard too. If I want to do something that's sort of like a traditional gluten carb, it's the gluten-free stuff, which it's much more dense. It's much more dense. It tends to spike your blood sugar faster. And especially if it's like a pastry or something like that, and then you add in sugars as well, like it is like a big spike and a big crash. And so it's like, um but it's recognizing what that looks like, and it's and also recognizing too, like when I'm just going to make the choice to do it anyway, like I don't have to do anything for the rest of the day. Like I can just sit here and enjoy my family, and I can have a big, you know spike and a big crash because I'm going to just sit here on my butt and hang out for the rest of the day. Like that's fine, I can have the cupcake that I know is going to do that, like whatever it is, because it's making the decision of like, how is this going to feel later? What do I have going on later? What
Well,
am
and
I not doing?
you're going into the cupcake knowing
Yeah,
what the consequence is going to be versus like
exactly.
I feel like a lot of the times in my past it was like I ate the cupcake and then I'm like, oh my God, why do I feel so terrible?
Yeah, yeah. It's just making that choice, or it's like maybe like I'm gonna have half of it, or I'm gonna have it with my supper, so that I'm kind of like tempering it with. already doing something that's not necessarily, I mean, it's a blood sugar spike, but it's like it's a more controlled blood sugar spike. So maybe I'll just do it with that. And so it's, yeah, it's recognizing like what that stuff feels like. And so I use a lot of terminology still in my brain from like, previous stuff. But also part of it is too, is like that stuff's lost its power. It's lost its power. It's like taking back words. It's like saying that I'm fat. Yeah, I'm fat and I'm okay with that. Like honestly, like I'm cool. I'm cool. The only limitations on this body are the ones that I put on it. Right now, again, I'm having some health issues, and so I'm not able to do the sort of movement that I want to do to build up the strength that I want. But as soon as I get this taken care of, now that we know what it is, everything's going to be fine, and I can go back to doing that. But also part of that too is like I have not been pushing myself through this either. It's like when I started to not feel okay, I stopped doing very concerted specific movement because that would trigger bad responses. And then I didn't feel guilty about it. The only problem with it is like, yeah, I don't feel as strong. Yeah, I don't feel as flexible. But also like the world's not gonna end. It's not gonna end because I'm not working out 5 days a week, like it's okay for me to sit at my desk instead of stand because I'm honoring how my body is feeling. And had I not been in that situation, I would have continued to push myself beyond and have these terrible health episodes that were happening. And they were really bad for my body. And, it's okay to know what we know. It's okay to learn. It's okay to always be kind of gathering more information. But when we start using it to make ourselves feel bad or to use it as a way to compare ourselves to other people or as a way to compare ourselves to what society thinks we're supposed to be or anything like that, that's when we start getting into that realm of like, yes, what I'm doing is disordered. It's like I don't hate my fat body because people look at me and think like you. I hated my fat body because of the limitations I felt that it put on me. And when I started to recognize the fact that like really like I'm actually okay being a big person and I have been for a long time, like I'm still sexy, I'm still healthy, I get limited sometimes in the things that I can do with my kid. And I'm also 43. I have asthma, I have Crohn's disease, like I'm busy, like I'm sorry, but I'm tired. I don't have time to like run around like a 22-year-old mom. I'm never going to, and that's just what it is, and there's things that I can move around, but like I don't hate the way that I look anymore because society says that I should. When I'm not comfortable with something, it's because it's something specific. If I put on an outfit and I look at myself in the mirror and it's like, okay, what is this? And I literally stand there and talk to myself, like, what is this? Is this because you're afraid of how somebody thinks that you look? Or is there something more specific going on? Like, no, I really feel like I need to be hugged today. Okay, let's change your clothes so you feel like you've got something that's like hugging you. Like, whatever, like, what is legitimately going on? When you look at yourself in the mirror and have that reaction, what is it?
I
And why?
remember when you got your professional pictures
Mm.
done and how
Shout out
excited
to
you
Holly
were.
Martella, Native Life Photography.
Wow.
Yeah, because it is, it's like I've got this chin, I'm a big person with a chin, but also the small people in my family have chins. My grandmother was tiny. She had the chin. Okay, yeah, I'm a human with a chin. I've got these big, waggy arms, but you know what? There's a lot of muscle in there. And I've worked hard for that muscle my whole life. And so I keep doing that. But yeah, it was just like, it was walking into a room with somebody who I was comfortable with and was in a space with my body where I was just like, I am just super happy. And I got them down and it's like some of my favorite pictures I never would have chosen 6 months before the because like, yeah, the chins and the this. And then I was like, look at my smile. That's what I was like my smile, my eyes. Like I'm a very expressive, very, always using my hands and all this. And it's like, and that is what, because people who know me, they're going to say, they're like, oh my God, yeah, it's totally you. It would be completely disingenuous if it wasn't that way. And that's the thing too, is like, when we're interacting with people, we can't see each other. And this is the hard thing too about things like this, where it's like, I can't see myself, when we could see ourselves on camera, so when people are interacting like that right now, if we could see ourselves on camera, like I can see this. So like, I've got some lighting so that I can see my face. And the way I sit, I do tend to like get rid of my chin more, but I do turn my head. I just can't see myself when I do it. So it's not like other people don't see that I have a chin. And I do occasionally see people in person. And it's not that they can't see that I'm a big person. It's pretty obvious. And, so going into like, it was just genuine. And people's BS meters are a lot stronger than you think they are. And when you're disingenuous in your message, and I can't do that, the level of trust that people have to put in me as a professional is huge. When I'm in their business books, I see how they're fighting it. Their personal books probably look, and how they're managing their lives. Like I see a lot going in there. It's like huge amount of trust to give somebody to do that. And I'm sorry, but when you look at those pictures, that looks like somebody that you can trust. Because again, like it's just comfortable, it's happy, it's all this stuff, and it was a completely different experience. It was amazing. It was amazing, 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 amazing. And I would have chosen so many different pictures because of the fact that, like, yeah, the chin was down. And it's like, oh, look, like there's no chin there. Yeah, but it's a look on my face that nobody would ever see me making, and like it just there's such a freedom. There's such a freedom in not living to make society happy. Like it's no longer my responsibility to make you comfortable with my body.
Well, and what I love about that is like, you're having this experience of like loving pictures of yourself, and it's not because your body has changed, right? It's not
Mm,
because you've lost weight or you look,
yeah,
like a certain way in the pictures. It's really how you think about yourself and your body that's changed. And that
yeah,
now you're looking at these pictures and you're focusing on your energy and
yeah,
your authenticity
yeah,
more than the physical
exactly.
appearance, right?
Yeah, yeah. And there's a lot of pieces of that. Yeah. Um, and there's also the recognizing too that like not every day is going to be like that. And that's why I really focus on those days that aren't like that when I start to feel like maybe we need to start looking at losing weight again. Like, and then I have a really serious conversation with myself. Like, what is that all about? What is it that you're feeling upset about right now? Like, I don't feel strong. I'm so tired all the time. Yeah, but that's because of what's going on right now. That's because of, what is happening with your health that you've been spending the last, 2 months trying to figure out. Like, that's not because you're fat. That's not because you're eating bad. That's not because you're choosing to not move. It's because there's something physically wrong with you and you're honoring yourself by not pushing, by not putting your body in a place to make this worse, to be uncomfortable. You are honoring yourself by sitting down. You are honoring yourself by not going and doing a whole bunch of movement that's just going to hurt. That's going to hurt or it's going to make you feel sick. So, okay, yeah, I get right now you're feeling this way, but let's talk about why. Like, let's talk about the real reason. It's not because you're big. It's really not. And, and when I can talk myself through that, and there's so much empathy that goes into that too. We are not a society that is empathetic. I mean, yeah, we kind of try to be and stuff like that, but particularly not to ourselves. And if I'm really, really offering myself the grace that I deserve, it's going to be the same kind that I would offer to my kid, to my mom, to my girlfriends, to my husband, to my family, just somebody I've just met. God, the amount of empathy I give to people that I've just met. It's so much more than I give to myself. Well, I deserve that too. I'm not always really good at doing it, but when I step back and just, make myself do it and cut through a lot of that stuff because it's not underlying that underlying feeling is not generally like, oh my God, you are too fat to exist. It's a whole bunch of BS that I didn't put there. And there maybe is something specific. Oh, it's hard to tie my shoe. Yeah, because I'm not flexible. It has nothing to do with anything else. Like, maybe my knee hurts. Okay, well, yeah, part of that could be because I'm big, but also like I have Crohn's disease. My joints are not happy. Like there are things that, that are going on. And it's like when we start to attribute things to what they actually are, there's very little. Again, if I go into a doctor and I want them to not just say everything wrong with you is because you're fat, I have to do the same thing to myself. Like everything wrong with you is not because you're fat, and that's its whole own thing too, walking into, to the doctor with this mindset. And that's huge too, walking into a doctor with this mindset. I surround myself immediately before I go in with like, I am not going to be weighed today because my weight is not important. And I surround myself with that boundary. And thus far, never been a fight. Just walk in, oh, let's get you on the scale. No, I'm not going to get weighed today. And they're like, okay, good. Because it's not relevant. When it becomes relevant, then we can talk about it. If it's relevant because an anesthesiologist wants to know my BMI before putting me under, okay, that's fine. That becomes relevant. And that's a conversation that they deserve to be a part of as well. But most of the time, it's not relevant. I have no idea how much I weigh today. And I am super okay with that. When I'm asked to give an estimate, it's like, I estimate high. I'm like, yeah, whatever, and I don't care. And that is so different. So different than the like, oh, check at the same time of day, naked, without, without like the same, right away on a Saturday morning with no clothes on, just to see.
So you go to the bathroom, you gotta pee first.
But then also where my kid can't see it, because I knew very early that that was something I didn't want her to see.
And that's a red flag, right? Like, why am I doing something?
I'm hiding again. It's like hiding and eating. I'm hiding again. Yeah, there's so much to unpack. There's so much to unpack with it, and the suitcase is different for all of us, and when we've talked about this too, because we don't have the shared experience of being overweight, and there is a lot that goes into that, and you've given me some amazing resources to help, deal with that shared experience in other ways, and that's amazing. But the biggest thing is that there are so many commonalities, because the suitcase might look different, but I mean, we all put in socks and underwear and toiletries and shoes and some clothes and stuff like we're all packing the same general things. It's just they just look different for each of us. And so starting to unpack that, it's going to be a little bit different, but it's really all the same. My suitcase is a lot lighter now than it was, a lot easier to carry around, even though my body might be heavier. And that was a hard piece too. And I think that's a piece of intuitive eating that needs to also be discussed, is that like, as you're rebuilding that trust with your body, you're likely to be a little bit larger. You got to give yourself a couple of years to let your body trust you again and tell you where it wants to be. And there are days that that's tough. But again, then it's that sitting down and having that really solid conversation with myself about like, why is it tough today? Why does it, like, do you need a hug today? Like, do you need some validation as a human being in another space that's actually related to who you are as a person and not your weight? Because it's like your weight has nothing to do with who you are as a person. So like, let's talk about some validation for what it is that actually hurts. Like, are you feeling lonely? Do you need a hug? Are you hungry? Well, don't think you're too fat to live and not go eat. So go eat something, okay? And like, do you need something soothing? Do you feel like you need to eat some feels here? Like, what does that look like? Because also, it's okay to eat when you're feeling things. And it's okay to take comfort in food, but like, okay, what does comfort food look like? Well, in the wintertime, we know what comfort food looks like. It usually looks like root veggies and nice thick broths and things like that, because our bodies want to like pack on some warmth and some density and stuff so that we can stay warm. Okay, well, that's still like eating feelings. Same kind of thing. Like, okay, so what are you feeling right now and what's going to help with that? Okay, so right now I'm really feeling low energy. And okay, so let's find something that's going to feel energetic. What is that? What's going to feel energetic right now? What's going to really build you up right in this moment? And it's talking through all of those pieces. And some days it's just natural, and that's the whole thing. Is like, once you rebuild that intuition, it starts to become more natural. But there's always going to be days that it's not. And so really stopping talking to myself through those days on like, what is actually going on, and getting to that root, because it's probably not what I think it is. And so when I figure out what it actually is, it's a lot easier to solve.
Yes.
And there's no shame in it. And that, again, no shame, blameless discernment, no judgment, just talk through the facts of the moment. talk through the facts of the moment, get to that piece. I don't even remember where I started that conversation. See,
Well,
'cause
I mean, you're just so communicative with yourself and your body, and there's just so much compassion. And I love, thinking about like, how would I talk to my best friend or my mom or my daughter? That's such a good gateway to how we should be treating ourselves. I hate using the word should, but this is one thing I do feel like we should do. We all should
yeah,
be nicer to ourselves.
yes, yeah. And then
Um,
that's the thing. Like if there is a should in your life, it's being kind. It's being kind. It's practicing empathy. It's practicing patience and tolerance. If there's a should in your life, that's what it is, and that needs to be aimed inward too. And we're so much better at aiming that out, but it's got
yeah.
to be aimed in.
What would you say to somebody that's like on the fence about doing this work?
Oh God. Find a way, find a way through yourself and whatever it is that you've got in your way. And man, like I mean, I've been looking up stuff. I have all the books. I did the freaking cabbage soup diet. Like we talked about, like I've done everything. I have tried every diet, every lifestyle, everything. In the moments in my life that I have felt most healthy when I look back are those moments where I was literally in a space of feeling comfortable enough with my body that I was eating intuitively, that I had sort of found something that worked. And for me too, it does tend to be, lower sugar, lower carb. That does tend to be something that my body does tend to work well with. Right now, I need the energy of that. Like right now, my body is in a space where it's like, can I have a little bit more? And then I'm giving it to it. And then I do it without judging it. Like, okay, you want a piece of toast with peanut butter and bananas in the morning? Like, if that's what feels good to start your day, sweet, go ahead, do that. Like, we're cool. Um, but it was really finding something that was like a diet at first that then just sort of morphed into a more sustainable lifestyle thing. Um, but unfortunately, I just keep having these health things come up that just like kick all that down, and that sucks. But I've done so much research over time. I learned so much. I've done so many different things. Hopefully, this is like filtering out all of my toddler being super obnoxious in the background. Um, but if not, whatever. Um,
We can barely hear.
be quiet.
Barely
That's
hear.
okay. Um, but so I've learned so many things. But again, there is a huge need to unlearn, and you cannot unlearn on your own, and you cannot truly learn until you've unlearned. Like like I said, you were born with programs installed. You were born with programs installed that knew what you were supposed to do. And over time, you've been filled with bloatware and, malware and all of this stuff. And like these original programs have just kind of been shunted aside. They haven't been updated, all of that stuff. You have to get rid of all that. You got to strip it back down. You have to unlearn the stuff that you've learned. You have to do it in a safe space. And you really, I would not, for me personally, I would not have been able to go through it alone. I could do a lot of self learning and self paced things. I would not have been able to go through it alone because there were definitely times where we would walk into a thing and it's like, oh, and this is what I did. And like, and I feel all great about all this stuff. And it's like, okay, yeah, but because there is this aspect of like, I might think that I'm doing all of this stuff really well. And there's definitely pieces that I am doing well. But then there's like still this last little piece. And that last little piece would be getting in my way of continuing to move forward. So somebody who knows what the hell they're talking about needs to be able to recognize that little piece and be like, okay, like, so here's this little thing here that's like directly in your way. If we don't move that, you can't go forward. But in a much nicer little way, like, let's talk through this. Like, well, but what about? But these are the words you're using. But
And
this
yeah,
is the, and then the shoulds and the this and then that's and like and bad and good and like that because words matter. Words matter because words got us where we were because we've
well,
been listening to those things.
it's so ingrained that sometimes we can't recognize it ourselves. Like I remember
Yeah.
we had the session about the chips, right? You're like, well, I have
Yeah.
like one serving of chips or whatever. Like you put like 7 chips in a bowl or something because that's the serving size on the bag. And you can laugh about it now, but that's
I
just like,
know,
that's
right?
how much you have because that's what the bag told me to have. It's like, is that really listening to your body?
The bag doesn't know how many chips I want.
That bag doesn't know who you are, how hungry you are, what else you're eating with it, like all of those things. And, we can laugh about it now, but like that's kind of the example. Like you don't really realize sometimes some of the things that you're doing
Yes.
just because
Yeah.
it is so ingrained. And so
Yeah.
part of my job is to like be that mirror, kind of really refreshing back,
Yes.
like, okay, this is what I'm hearing.
Right. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and there's also that aspect too of like, why do we hire experts? Why do people hire me? Well, because they don't know how to do their books. Okay. So do I know how to intuitively? No. And part of what we do as experts is provide resources, provide other things where it's like, okay, I think this could also be something to look at. And so that was true because those supplemental things, podcasts, books, things like that, that continued to push that message, that continued, or maybe framed the message in a different way that stuck differently. And that's part of it too, is like we have to be willing to hear a message in order to hear it. And maybe it's not even that I'm not willing, it's maybe that it's just not framed in a way that I did hear it. It's just like, okay, so here's some additional resources you could check out, and like, hey, that message you were talking about that thing, and now it makes sense because then I read that, and that's what made. So it's like it's building on knowledge, it's hearing different messaging, and it's finding that way to really bring it in and make it make sense. And so yeah, there's definitely like it's just having that guide, and now, I mean, like I said, we took a couple months off, your travels and my travels, and that actually was really great because it was like, okay, we were a couple months in, and it's like now I'm a month on my own, and I wasn't on my own because I knew you were there, and we were, you were checking in and stuff too. But that was great because it's like, okay, let me do this in practice for a month, and then we'll come back and see how it was. So that actually was a great model for me, because I was doing so many other things at the same time, and then having that next month where we were traveling and doing all this stuff too. And that was great too because I got to see while I was out traveling, like, what this stuff looked like, because you snack when you travel, and like, okay, but what did my snacks look like? How was I eating? And most of the time, because we have an RV, so we were driving, and mostly like we just drive and snack all day, and I mean, my toddler, because it's that way, she just snacks all day, so we were just eating like a toddler all day. But it's like, if I looked at that through the day, by the end of the day I actually got solid nutrition, and I ate when my body said it was hungry, and I ate what it asked for, and then I was done. And so it's like, if we looked at the whole day, it was a good amount of nutrition. But it was really great to be able to like put that into practice for a month and then come back and talk about it a little bit more. Yeah, there's so much of needing that. I totally forgot the beginning. And there's also like, so this is something that I've recognized too. One of my hunger triggers, because it's coming on lunchtime and my breakfast is gone now. And so it's like, I'm talking along and I'm like, how did she even ask me? Oh yeah, that's right, I'm hungry. But I do also, because we've talked about it, it's like these are one of my great little snacks that was suggested by Leah. So like, I've got my things right here. So like, if I'm in a meeting, I can't get up, or like, I know it's going to be too long, and I'm like, I got things there that I know my body is going to be like, yep, no, this is good, I'm happy, you know. So yeah. So if I didn't answer your question, that's gonna get.
No, it's perfect. Literally anything that comes out of your mouth is perfect.
Oh.
Yeah, so I want to, just thank you for taking your time to kind of share your story and your experience with this. And it has been an absolute joy working with you and seeing your journey and how much your mindset has changed around your body and food, and that we were able to help you kind of navigate some of the Crohn's stuff. And now I think one of the other things I really want to I love pointing out about you is like you're now continuing on to work with a dietitian that specializes in Crohn's, but what you told me is that wouldn't really have been possible without having done this work first and healing your relationship with food. And now you have that more confidence in body and the food piece to work with another professional that specializes in that.
Well, and there's also a boundaries piece because of so much of the mindset shifts and so many of the pieces that we did. And you and I, we worked a lot on boundaries with a lot of different things because there were certain situations I knew that were coming up. But also I can walk into that situation knowing that I am not going to allow certain things, like oh, well, we need to know what your food for like a few days so we can track things. I'm like, that's super triggering for me. I can write it, just write down like the food I ate, but I cannot log it. And it's like, okay, nope, that's cool. It's like it's being able to walk in and say, I will not do this. Or I am going to listen to the fact that I know that my body is not going to be okay with this thing. And I'm a person too, like I have a lot of confidence to do a lot of that stuff anyways, but there were definitely pieces that were still like holding on where it's like, oh yeah, but I'm supposed to listen to experts and do this stuff, and like if they're saying I should do this thing, I should probably like, and so I have more confidence just to be like, no. And no is a complete sentence, full stop, no. And if we need to build on that because of the relationship we have, because you need to know why I'm saying no, okay, then no is because like I know my body is not going to feel okay with this. Like I've tried this in the past, I know this didn't work. And then also knowing that maybe some of the things I tried in the past didn't work because situationally there was something going on with it. So it's a boundaries thing, it's a willingness thing, but it's a very much also a piece of like, I have a different level of confidence about honoring my body now. And it's so hard. It's so hard to qualify, because I mean we keep talking, just like I feel like there's a piece missing that I can't say because it's just how it feels. Like I look at the space that I was in that first conversation, and I've cried about this to you before. I look at where I was and I just felt so defeated. I felt like there was no way I was ever going to get a handle on my body and on how I felt, and that I was never going to find what it needed, and that I was just going to kind of constantly be in this space where I just felt like I was spinning my wheels, always looking for the next thing that was going to help. Nothing worked. And I remember walking into my gynecologist last year, was right before we started working together. And they said, I just don't know what to do. Like, I'm just not okay. And she says, the thing is that there's really nothing that we can be checking. Like, it's like, is it a hormone thing? Well, maybe, but how do we figure that stuff out? And I told her I was going to be working with you. And she's like, I've never heard of a wellness. I'm like, I said, this is kind of what it is. And I said, I don't know what it's going to be. And, I'm going back to see her soon. And like that person who was sitting there that day is not who I am now, because I don't feel defeated. I might be in a moment with my body that I don't like. I don't like feeling this way. I don't like what's going on inside of my body. But the second I knew something was wrong, I started working to make it better. I didn't sit in it. I didn't make excuses about, oh, it's maybe just this. I listened to my body saying something is wrong. And I called all my doctors and I got all their schedules and I've had all the tests. And like, I wouldn't have done that the same way. I would have sat in it. I would have kind of gone to one and then the other. I wouldn't have pushed the same way. It is a mindset shift. It is an emotion shift. It is a confidence shift. It is and this is not what I thought it was going to be. I just thought like you were going to help me figure out how to just, I don't know, do a different diet. I don't like, I mean, that's not, I knew that wasn't what's going to like, but at the same time, like, you don't know walking in. But it is like, it has been a whole life shift because it does then move into all other areas. It's not just about eating, it is about movement. And, everybody will notice I don't say exercise because, again, words have certain power and exercise has a certain connotation for me because that's not what I want. I want movement. I want my body to move in a way that helps me feel healthy and strong. I have not used the word exercise since we started working together. And it feels a lot better for me to say like, oh God, I'm gonna go do some movement, like, and like not like, oh, I gotta go exercise. No, I'm gonna go do movement. I'm gonna go do the movement that my body wants today. And if what I had planned, it doesn't feel like it's gonna be good, I'm gonna just do something else. And so it is just it's a whole, it is a complete whole psychic, emotional, intellectual, everything shift. And there's not a thing that I could say to like fully qualify what that is. Like literally, and I've told you, you changed my life. And it was you sharing your life and your experiences that made me decide to do that. And it has completely changed my life. So I don't know how to I don't know how to do it without crying.
You're making me cry.
Because anybody who knows me knows that I'm just like one big emotion bag who just like,
Well,
whatever.
thank you so much for trusting me with this, because I know it's not easy work. It's not fun work. It's
Not always, no.
no, it's not. It's vulnerable and it's messy, and but it's
Yeah,
worth it.
very
It's
much
so
so.
worth it.
Very much so. Yeah. And to know too that there's, like the ongoing support too. I mean, like right now, again, I'm transitioning to another set, but you're there, and I love seeing the Facebook interactions and stuff like that. That helps me remember things. It gives me new information and reminds me of things that I know. And, just it's sort of that, constant ongoing. I don't see how mm, I don't see how I could ever go backward now. It's kind of like, when you open your eyes and you can see like you're not going to go back to closing your eyes anymore because there's kind of some cool stuff to see out there. And so it's the same kind of thing. Like I don't know how to become, I don't think it's possible for me to be sort of like unintuitive eating out now, like there's definitely going to be struggles and stuff, but I don't think it would be possible for me to ever go back to, living and existing the way that I did before. And that's awesome because I don't ever want to do that because that was such a horrible place to be, even when there were moments of it that were okay. Like in general, it's just not a fun place to be. So, and I like that my body is starting to trust me. And I like that the partnership that we're developing is based on, mutual trust, mutual respect. And, I know that if I listen to it and take care of it, it's going to continue to honor and care for me too. So I want to grow old gracefully. I'm like graceful, screw graceful, but like I want to grow old like healthfully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, well,
Yeah.
thank you so much. I absolutely adore you, and I'm so pleased with your progress. And I know that we'll definitely be staying in touch, but
I do
um,
miss regular meetings. Like that's the one
I
thing is it's like that's the hardest part is that it eventually will end.
I mean, it doesn't have to.
I know, like end.
I have somebody I've worked with for I think we're going on 2.5 years now, and we still meet. We shorten our meetings, we see
Right.
less frequently, but there's
Yeah.
still that touch, because this is
Yeah.
something like it can be really isolating to
Yes.
be an intuitive eater and be counterculture. And so having that, just like a touchstone
Right.
for the work can be really helpful. But yeah, and I have people take a break and come back. It's like, okay, I need just a little
Yeah.
refocus a little bit. Life's happened
Yep.
and like time to recenter a little bit, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's always the free content and video
Yep.
stuff that you
Absolutely.
can always go back to.
Yep.
So
Those are good touch points. And there's just so much good stuff in there too. And it's like there was one day you posted about sweet potatoes, like, oh my God, yeah, I need sweet potatoes. And like I've been just consuming sweet potatoes like crazy. Like, why did I not think about sweet potato? Like, I love sweet potatoes. So it's yeah, sometimes it's just that little like trigger, like, oh, yeah, I want that thing. That actually feels really good. Sweet potatoes are amazing.
well, thank you so much, Molly. Any parting
Yes.
words before we sign off?
Oh God, I have so many, like, oh, I already had so many words, I don't even know. Eh, there is, there is better. There is better. It's not easy, but there is better, I guess. And your body knows how to do this.
That it does.
And it's what it wants to do. Your body knows how to do this. It's going to take the lead and it'll do it quickly because it's a lot more powerful than the messaging that your brain has gotten. Your body will help take over pretty quick. So it's just different. And that's the different thing. I think that's a big piece is it's not like a diet that is not what your body wants. It seems so hard to do. It's so hard to follow. Well, it's not hard to follow this because it's just what your body wants. It's so easy once you deprogram your brain. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Molly.
Yeah. Yay. Bye,
Bye.
Facebook world.